2021, Eastern District of Virginia. Federal Courthouse. Clinton Portis, 4 Pro Bowls, $43 million career, lost $5 million to an NFLPA-certified financial advisor. When no effective legal recourse materialized, he committed healthcare fraud to survive. In 2022, guilty plea. 6 months in federal prison. Thousand 12, San Diego, California. Drew Brees discovers that a trusted jeweler, introduced through his inner circle, someone he considered a friend, has been selling him diamonds at 3 to 4 times their actual appraised value. $9 million total, he calls his lawyer. He files a civil suit. He wins. Same category of crime. Trusted. Relationship. Calculated financial fraud with a personal face. When trust is violated, the question is not who was betrayed. The question is, who had the weapons to fight back? That answer in this series has never been random. Austin, Texas, January 1979. State capital, university town. Not a Rust Belt geography or a post-industrial wound. A city where institutions function as designed, where professional people navigate them as a matter of daily life, where the Brees family occupied a specific and important position within that professional class. Chip Brees, Drew's father, was an attorney. That single biographical fact is the most undercovered element in the Drew Brees financial story. Growing up in a household where a parent practices law produces something specific and durable, the understanding that legal systems are accessible, that courts exist and can be approached, that when someone wrongs you within a documented framework, there are named processes for response. That knowledge, call a lawyer, here is what to do, here is what it produces, is not available to every 22-year-old who signs an NFL contract. It was available to Drew Brees before he signed his first. Not because he earned it, because of who his father was. Ray Akins, Drew's maternal grandfather, coached Texas high school football for decades. New Braunfels Canyon, Southwest Texas State. A man whose name carries weight in Texas football culture in the earned, community-embedded way that only decades of consistent presence produces. The coaching heritage from his grandfather and the legal literacy from his father gave Brees 2 specific orientations before he took a single professional snap. That excellence is built through accountable process and that systems exist to protect you when you know how to use them. Purdue University. Big Ten. Not a pipeline program that sends players to the NFL as a matter of routine. Brees went because it was the right academic choice alongside football, not because it was the path of least competitive resistance. That decision-making framework, weighing options, choosing the one that builds multiple things at once, shows up throughout the choices that follow. The specific wound this background creates is not poverty or absence. It is something only success produces. The expansion of your inner circle, past the point where personal verification remains possible. When you are a rookie quarterback in San Diego, your trusted circle is small. When you are a 12-year NFL starter with $250 million in career contracts, a Super Bowl ring, and a name that opens every room in New Orleans and beyond, your circle grows. People are introduced through existing relationships. Dynamics build quickly around the shared currency of access. Trust is extended because the vetting that worked at smaller scale cannot keep pace with the scale itself. He was not naive. He was successful. And success is what makes inner circle access valuable to the people who want to extract from it. The people who target wealthy athletes through personal relationships are not approaching strangers. They are approaching people whose trust, once earned, is worth precisely what the relationship cost them to build. The jeweler did not approach Drew Brees on the street. He was introduced. He was maintained. The fraud required the friendship first. He was not lied to by a stranger. He was lied to by a person he had specifically chosen to trust. That is a different kind of loss, and it is a loss that success made uniquely possible. 2001, San Diego Chargers, starter by his second season. Pro Bowl in 2004. A near-fatal shoulder injury in 5. Right shoulder, throwing shoulder, reconstructive surgery, the kind of damage that ends most careers at that position. He rehabbed. He came back in 2006. He signed with the New Orleans Saints, a city 12 months removed from Hurricane Katrina's landfall, a stadium that had served as an emergency shelter, a fan base that needed the game to carry weight beyond the game. The match between what Brees was and what New Orleans needed produced something that does not happen often. A quarterback who became genuinely embedded in a community's identity, not just its sports coverage. He stayed when it would have been easier and more lucrative to go elsewhere. The city claimed him and he claimed it back. February 7, 2010, Miami Gardens, Super Bowl XLIV. New Orleans Saints versus the Indianapolis Colts. Saints 31, Colts 17. Drew Brees, Super Bowl MVP. He walked off the field with champions confetti and his young son in his arms, a photograph that reproduced itself across every platform for the following decade because it captured something real. The career had arrived. Career earnings total, approximately $250 million across 20 seasons. Endorsements stacking on top, Advocare, Wrangler, Chase Bank, Jimmy Dean, multiple Procter & Gamble brand partnerships. At peak, estimated $10 to $15 million annually in endorsement income running in parallel to the playing contract. The same structural function as John Elway's car dealerships. Income that does not stop when any single source is disrupted. During the Chargers' years, Brees was introduced through his network to a San Diego jeweler named Vahid Moradi, not a cold approach. A warm introduction through existing relationships, the kind of connection that builds into a trusted dynamic precisely because it does not feel transactional from the start. Over subsequent years, Brees purchased diamonds and jewelry pieces from Moradi, framed as investment assets. Multiple pieces, multiple transactions. The trust of the relationship increasing with each exchange, or what appeared to be successful exchanges at the time. At some point, Brees had several pieces independently appraised by a third-party gemological evaluator. The numbers came back. Items he had paid Moradi for at one price were worth, by objective market assessment, approximately 1/4 to 1/3 of what he had paid. Across the full relationship, $9 million paid for assets whose actual value was a fraction of that amount, not one bad transaction, not a market fluctuation, a systematic, relationship-enabled overpricing scheme that had been running for as long as the trust had been extended. Brees filed civil litigation. Claims, fraud, breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty, and related causes of action. The lawsuit proceeded through San Diego courts. Terms of resolution, confidential per most reporting. Outcome for Brees, favorable, no bankruptcy, no financial distress. No criminal charges against Brees of any kind. Endorsement contracts continuing throughout the litigation period. Career uninterrupted. The litigation was real, expensive in time and emotional energy, and consequential. And it did not threaten anything structural in his life. He found the fraud because he knew to look. He fought the fraud because he had what fighting it required. The combination of those two things is not something the NFL provides. It is something you arrive with, or you do not arrive with it. $9 million is not a small number. It is being stated clearly and without softening. $9 million of fraud is real harm, real violation, real cause for anger and legal response. The amount is not being minimized here, and at a net worth of approximately $100 to $150 million at the time of discovery, $9 million is approximately 6 to 9% of total wealth. Painful, worth fighting, not existential. Clinton Portis lost $5 million at his wealth level when the loss occurred. With existing obligations against career earnings, no secondary income streams running in parallel, no financial runway adequate to fund extended litigation while simultaneously managing the shortfall. $5 million produced crisis mode, not painful lesson mode, same category of crime. The weight of loss is not determined by the number. It is determined by the ratio. And the ratio is determined by what existed before. Advantage number 1. Legal infrastructure, the father variable. Drew Brees' father is an attorney. That single biographical fact explains more about the outcome difference between Brees and Portis than any other variable available for comparison. When Brees discovered the appraisal gap, the path forward was not complicated. Call a lawyer, document the transactions, establish the fraud, file suit, pursue it. The legal system is a tool when you have been raised, watching someone use it professionally across your entire childhood. The orientation, institutions are accessible, legal remedy exists. Here is the first step, is learned. It is transmitted through environments where legal recourse is normalized, where filing a lawsuit feels like a reasonable response to documented wrong rather than an intimidating unknown process controlled by people who are not on your side. Portis did not have an attorney father. When the NFLPA endorsed advisor fraud produced inadequate initial responses and the legal path forward was unclear, there was no practiced instinct for which mechanism to access and how. The eventual outcome, desperation, a different decision, federal charges, was not inevitable. But the unavailability of the practiced position, call a lawyer. Here is exactly what to do. At the critical moment is part of what separated the trajectories. Knowing how to fight is capital. It is not distributed equally. Advantage number 2. Financial buffer, the ratio that changes everything. Throughout the litigation against Murati, endorsement checks arriving, contract salary arriving. The lawsuit ran inside a financial life that did not stop around it. Brees could fund expensive attorneys, sustain a multi-year civil proceeding, and absorb the $9 million loss without threatening anything his family depended on. At a lower wealth level, a significant fraud loss produces immediate liquidity problems. You cannot fund litigation while the fraud has simultaneously eliminated the margin the litigation requires. You cannot both fight and survive on the same reduced resources. At some point you have to choose or find a third option. Portis found a third option. It resulted in federal charges. The NFL system creates enormous variance in player wealth, contract lengths, guaranteed money, career duration, injury timing. All of it produces a distribution where a small number of players accumulate the kind of buffer that makes $9 million survivable, and a much larger number of players accumulate far less. The system provides no mechanism to equalize what that variance means. When a financial crisis arrives, $9 million is a painful number. At $100 million net worth, it is not a survival question. At a lower wealth level, $5 million is a different kind of math entirely. Advantage number 3. The endorsement empire, income that did not pause. Wrangler did not cancel its partnership because Brees filed a fraud lawsuit. Chase Bank did not end its arrangement. Jimmy Dean did not pull the deal. The endorsement empire was built on an image, family man, resilient comeback story, Super Bowl champion, New Orleans symbol, and the image was undamaged and arguably enhanced by his decision to pursue legal remedy rather than absorb the fraud quietly. The narrative of trusted friend defrauded him, he fought back legally, aligns with the image the endorsement partners had purchased. Income continued. The structure of his financial life was not threatened by the lawsuit running inside it. This is the same function served by John Elway's car dealership empire when the Mueller Ponzi scheme took $15 million from him, a secondary income source independent of the primary loss that keeps generating while the primary problem is being addressed. Elway had dealerships. Brees had endorsements. The mechanism differs, the structural protection is identical. His income did not pause for the lawsuit. For other players in this series, one financial crisis is all it took to start the cascade. Advantage number 4. The Advocare complication. Nobody in this story is only one thing. This needs to be stated. Because the honest version of any person in this series includes the directions in which their influence moved, not only the harm done to them. During the years Brees was building his career and his endorsement portfolio, he was one of the most prominent celebrity promoters of Advocare, a nutrition and supplement company built on multi-level marketing structure. Brees appeared in Advocare advertising, attended Advocare events, and lent his credibility to a company that used that credibility as a primary recruitment tool. In 2019, the FTC reached settlement with Advocare, finding that the company had operated as a pyramid scheme. Hundreds of thousands of participants had lost money. Many were lower-income individuals who had been recruited by people they trusted, who pointed to Drew Brees as evidence the company was legitimate and the opportunity was real. Brees was not prosecuted. He did not design the scheme. He was, by most accounts, a genuine believer in the product. His endorsement was not fraudulent in the legal sense. But people trusted the Brees name into an investment that harmed them. His credibility was the mechanism. Their loss was real and his name was on the door. He was defrauded by someone who used inner circle trust. He also, through his endorsement, channeled others' trust toward a company the FTC found had exploited it. Both things are true. They are not the same thing, but they exist in the same life, in overlapping years, and the complete story of Drew Brees and money includes both directions. Nobody in this story is only one thing. The recovery from the Moradi fraud was structurally guaranteed by what existed before the fraud. Legal knowledge from a father who practiced law. A financial cushion large enough to fund litigation without threatening daily life. Endorsement income running parallel and unthreatened. Image intact enough to withstand the narrative and even benefit from it. Take those away, the father's profession, the wealth buffer, the endorsement architecture, and you have a person who lost $9 million to trusted inner circle fraud and then faced the same set of inadequate options the other players in this series faced. The recovery was not character. The recovery was infrastructure. So what is the dark reality of Drew Brees' story? It is not that he made a mistake trusting a jeweler. The mistake framing makes the story smaller than it is and assigns the lesson to the individual rather than to the structure. Most people who extend trust to people in their vetted inner circle do not encounter systematic fraud. He did. That is not a lesson about trust. It is a documented crime that happened to a specific person. And it is not that wealthy athletes are also vulnerable. They are. But stating that without examining what makes the vulnerability survivable for some and not for others produces a story about equality of suffering that obscures the more important inequality, the inequality of recovery. Here is the truth. Clinton Portis lost $5 million to an NFLPA certified advisor, an institutional relationship embedded in the structure of the league itself. He had limited legal infrastructure, no financial buffer adequate to fund extended litigation while managing the resulting shortfall, and no secondary income architecture running parallel to absorb the loss. Drew Brees lost $9 million, more money, to a person in his private inner circle rather than an institutional relationship. He had a father who practiced law, a net worth that made $9 million survivable without cascade consequences, endorsement income that continued through the litigation, and the practiced automatic instinct to immediately call an attorney. He won. Portis went to prison. The fraud was the same category. The difference in outcomes has nothing to do with the severity of what was done to them and everything to do with what surrounded the moment it was done. That surrounding is not earned one contract at a time. It is built across generations, across backgrounds, across the accumulated inheritance of knowing how institutions work and believing they can work for you. The independent appraisal is the symbol of this story, not as a consumer tip, as a representation of the entire structure, the capacity to verify, the confidence that external verification is available and legitimate, the access to the professional who performs it, and the legal framework that honors the result. Brees got the second opinion because he had been raised in a world where second opinions exist and are worth getting. The appraisal unlocked the lawsuit. The lawsuit unlocked the recovery. The appraisal was not skepticism. It was infrastructure expressing itself. The Advocare fact belongs here. In the years he was being defrauded, he was also lending his name to a company the FTC later found had operated as a pyramid scheme. Hundreds of thousands of people lost money in part because his credibility made the company's promises feel legitimate. He did not design the scheme. He was not charged with fraud. He appears, by all evidence, to have believed in what he was promoting. But the direction of trust moves both ways in his story. He was defrauded by someone who used his trust. He also channeled others' trust towards something that cost them. Both directions are real. Honest examination requires holding both without collapsing them into each other and without allowing either to disappear. This series has documented 12 players. The losses they experienced came from different sources: fraudulent advisors, Ponzi schemes, inner circle betrayal, non-guaranteed contracts, CTE denial, domestic violence consequences, and the simple arithmetic of careers that are shorter than lives. What the documentation shows, accumulated across 12 cases, is not that the NFL's financial ecosystem is uniquely corrupt. It is that the ecosystem produces a predictable distribution of outcomes based on variables that precede NFL employment. Background, family financial literacy, legal knowledge, existing wealth, social capital networks, race, and class position. The players who had those things before football arrived recovered when the financial crises arrived. The players who did not recover in the same way, or did not recover at all. The NFL did not create that inequality. But it did create the concentrated financial events, enormous contracts, sudden wealth, short career windows, no guaranteed money, that act as accelerants for inequalities already present. And it has never built the infrastructure that would narrow what those inequalities produce in the lives of the players who built its revenues. Drew Brees is 45 years old. He works as an NFL analyst for NBC Sports. He has multiple business ventures. His net worth is estimated between $160 and $200 million. He remained in New Orleans for years after retirement. He is still married. He continues working. The fraud is a footnote. Not because $9 million is small, it is not, but because everything surrounding the moment the fraud was committed guaranteed that $9 million would remain a footnote, rather than a turning point. When trust is violated, the outcome depends on what surrounds the violation. The fraud was the same category. The surrounding was not. And who gets which surrounding? That has never been random in this series, and it was not random here.